Hello there, Aldwyn Altuney here, and welcome to Truth Xpose TV. Today I have a very special guest for you, and her name is actually Jordan Alexander, and we're going to talk about the truth about love and how to spot online dating scammers. Now, this lady is extraordinary. She's a very successful businesswoman and a single mum. At 51 years of age, she looks a lot younger than that. She was scammed $140,000 in just 6 months after she fell in love with an online fake millionaire railway consultant. She was born in Canada and raised to Croatian and Ukrainian immigrants. She left her hometown of Oshawa, Ontario, to live in the wild west of Canada, a place called Victoria, before heading to New Zealand in 1994. And I know that she travels a lot nowadays, and we actually met in Sydney, and here we are coming to us live from New Zealand. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you, Aldwyn.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. And we got chatting because I've been single for most of my life. Well, I've had relationships on and off, but I've been one of these kind of very ambitious ladies that has never married at 45, and I've definitely had my challenges when it comes to relationships and dating, and I know a lot of people have. So before we get into what you do around the dating world, can we talk a bit about what it was like growing up in Canada to immigrant parents? What was that like for you?
Well, I mean, I guess when you're a child and you're growing up, you don't know it to be any different from anything else, really. It's only once you start getting older and comparing how other cultures are living that you start to recognize that there's a difference between what goes on in your household and what goes on in other people's households. So it was interesting because both my parents were very, very traditional sort of first generation immigrants. And although to look at them, they look like everyone else, but they had very, very traditional views. And so we grew up with those views, very, very stereotypical views of what the man's role is and what the woman's role is. And even now, I know a number of couples that have these cultural relationships, and the culture features really strongly. So I'll give you an example. So my father, when I was talking about going off to university, he said to me, Mariana, why would you want to do that? You're just going to get married and have children, And my mother's big advice around relationships was, does he drink too much? Does he beat you? And it's like, if it wasn't up there, then forget, what are you complaining about? And so the bar was pretty low when I was going out there. But then you're exposed to different cultures when you're growing up. So I was Canadian educated, and everyone else was very Anglo-Saxon, and so you start to develop different beliefs. And one of the key things that we do at Love Assist is start to unpick some of those beliefs that we acquire. And I talk about it like a matryoshka doll, the little Russian nesting dolls. Okay. And somewhere under all of those layers of all those acquired beliefs is your authentic you. And so when it comes to love and relationships, not only do we have to sort through our cultural lens, but there's also all the social media and all sorts of expectations that we make for ourselves that no one can possibly measure up.
Yes, very interesting. And I actually have Greek, Turkish, Ukrainian blood myself, so we could be related way back when. Jordan, so that's fantastic. And I know my European heritage definitely shaped a lot of the way I do life nowadays. And I do love to feed people, as I was saying before, love to feed people. And we love love. We love the idea of love as well. The Europeans are very passionate. And I think anywhere in the world, we all want love and connection. And yet it's such a challenging thing for so many people to find true love. And so what are some big mistakes that people are making when it comes to looking for love, or looking for your soulmate, or looking for the one?
Well, I think looking for the one sort of identifies one of the key issues. We have these expectations that we are going to be walking into our own rom-com. and that we're going to meet that person who is going to be perfect. And, I mean, I loved Pretty Woman, and I was literally waiting for Richard Gere to come driving down with the boat and, come and pick me up off the balcony. It doesn't quite work that way. And one of the great sort of, he calls himself a philosopher amongst other things, but he's a researcher, Alain de Botton, and you might have followed him a little bit, but he's more of a realist about what we should be looking for in relationships. And he says that on your first date, you should probably sit down and explain to the person, and how am I crazy? So because we're all a little nuts in a good way, but it's unrealistic, I think, when we go out there trying to measure up to a scorecard that actually isn't practical. And it doesn't mean that you can't find love and romance and all the things that you're looking for, but through social media and through what's expected in some of the movies and those sorts of things, we think that, if we go online dating, we should be looking for tall, dark, and handsome, or that we should be looking for, a woman that does X, Y, and Z. And so we go in with these glasses on that, you're thinking about writing profiles to attract something that's not even actually that important to you. So one of the things that we talk about in our programs and at our live events is to be, authentic and have an authentic profile and presence. And so if you go back to the Matryoshka analogy, you've got to figure out which of those layers and those beliefs and the things that are important to you that you really hold near and dear and are the most important. So that takes some work. And so a number of people actually aren't relationship ready, and they go online. And so you're actually, Stephen Covey talks about, your ladder being up against the wrong wall. Well, love and romance is exactly the same. If you're looking for something that actually isn't a match to who you are, your ladder's up against the wrong wall.
Right.
And so we keep making sort of similar mistakes until we do the work to get relationship ready. And so one of the real reasons that I feel that I ended up in this horrible situation as a romance scam victim was because I hadn't done the work on myself to figure out being relationship ready. I hadn't gone through and sifted and sorted what are the values and the beliefs that pertain to me in love and relationships. So we often seek what's familiar. And Alain de Botton talks about that. A lot of the researchers talk about, you go for something that's familiar because your brain is programmed to go with what's normal. So, for example, if you ended up growing up in a negative environment when you were a young person, and your parents were arguing all the time, or there was abuse of some description, whether you like it or not, your brain is wired that that's your set point. That's what you're expecting. And so what happens quite often is you can be in a relationship and the person can be fantastic for you. They're a great fit. They're really supportive. They're family people, all these great things. But if your set point and your familiarity is not that, then you're going to start to do things. You're going to start to sabotage. You're going to start to do things that actually don't make sense, but you're going back to what's familiar. So it's about, does that make sense?
Yeah. So this is why people keep attracting the same kinds of people in their life as partners.
Absolutely.
It feels comfortable.
Yes. And so for me, I mean, no offense to the men that I dated before, but you can be a bit of a shit magnet. Yeah. And if you don't clean out your own sort of backyard, or you could be with a fantastic person, but you're continuously lighting the matches and being the arsonist in your own turret, waiting for, the knight in shining armor to show up. And even if he did come, you're already blowing the place up. So it's really for your own sake and for these poor guys out there that are trying to connect with you, do the work around being relationship ready. So that's part of what we do at Love Assist.
Yes, very interesting. And I'd love to explore that a bit more. But firstly, your online dating scam situation. So how did that start? Can you explain a bit more about how you got into that and what exactly happened?
Sure. I mean, it's not the thing that I want to be known for, but unfortunately it was one of those situations where when I came to the end of it, it was like, well, what are you going to do with this? You've had this experience. You have to do something. It was like driving past a park, a beautiful, national park, and seeing a lit match or a cigarette burning. You've got to go out there and talk about it. So basically, what ended up happening is I was like yourself, very, ambitious in the work sense, and really threw most of my time into that and raising kids. And I'd been single for years, and my friends were saying, Jordan, you've got to go find a guy because you're just too much working, and you can imagine our babushka saying, what are you doing? No man, and so I decided, the girls and I were in the kitchen one night, and there was a computer there, and this B2 ad popped up. And, I'm one of these, there's signs all over the place. And so it was kind of like, okay, now we're going to do it now. We're going to do it now. And I got the girls to help me pick a name. And we went with Funny Girl. It's like, who would ask kids to name a pet or their online dating profile? But anyways, so we did that. And it was, I chose B2 because it had this big, long personality profile matching, and all the dating sites and apps have different ways of connecting. So, places like Tinder, they use your Facebook friends, and they help match that way. So there's a lot to it. I had no idea what anything was going on in that. And this is one of the other key things is just not knowing what you don't know. If you would have said to me, oh, you better watch out, you're going to be a romance scam victim, I would have laughed. I would have said, there's just no way, it'll never happen to me. So anyway, so I filled out the application and then I went to bed that night and I was thinking, gosh, I hope somebody's going to pick me. It's really interesting. And I've talked to a lot of people that the first foray they have with online dating, they're not going out there to buy something or going out there to find something. They've turned the tables, and it's like, gosh, I hope I'm worthy or somebody wants to actually go out with me. And you can imagine you're already behind the 8 ball when you're thinking, I'm not using this as a tool to try and find what I'm looking for. It becomes almost like how many likes do I have on my Facebook page? And it's a different sort of measuring stick. Anyway, so I woke up the next day, and I had people that had sort of corresponded, and there was this one guy this is day one of actually online dating, and this guy James had written to me, and I looked through his pictures, as you do. Anybody who says that looks aren't important, they absolutely are, for all kinds of reasons, but it doesn't mean you have to be looking a specific way. But you want to learn about someone. Anyway, so he was in this outdoor cafe scene, and he was in a business shirt, but he had his sleeves rolled up. So I thought, oh, that's cool. So he's not a stuffy person, and he's out enjoying food probably. And he had beautiful crystal blue eyes, and you're just thinking, okay, so, it's worth a, hey, how you doing sort of thing. Long story short, he was a railway consultant engineer, and he had his business. He had a business of his own. He had lost his wife to breast cancer about 7 or 8 years prior. And so he had not been dating a lot since then. And he had a son, so he was a solo dad. And so there were all these things that were quite endearing. And we started out quite innocently, sharing stories about work, and, and I would help him with proposals, and he would talk to me about what was going on with my day. And we very quickly ended up speaking every day. And he asked me to go off the dating site. And again, didn't know what I didn't know. And if you read the small print, all of the dating sites say don't go off the dating sites. Never go off the dating sites. There's no point until you've met the person and you know that they're not a total nut bar. You'd never give your personal phone messages, nothing like that. You have to stay safe. These are total strangers until you've met them face to face. And even then you've got to, play it safe. I didn't do any of that. I had, he wanted my address so he could send me flowers. And I thought, oh, that's a bit dubious. So I thought, oh, I know, I'll be smarter than him. I'll ask for his address first. And so I sent him flowers, and legitimately he was in London. He received the flowers. It was to say, hey, great job he had won this contract in Spain. And so it just went on. And then he was, because he's doing in the railway profession, quite often he was out of Wi-Fi zones. Railways go through all sorts of remote places. Another scam, sort of telltale. And he asked me if I could do some banking for him. That it started, like that. And I thought, wow, here's this guy that I don't really know that well, and he's completely entrusting me with his passwords and all these things. And I logged on to the Citibank, and moved money around for him. And lo and behold, there's like £6 million in there. He had never mentioned, hey, I'm filthy rich. And I never, we were just going along like normal. Didn't matter. Money wasn't an object. And then shortly thereafter, it was, I can't access the money because, I've got the wrong IP address, but I really need, 15 grand to get these railway supplies so that I can get the job done. And by this point, we had arranged to meet in Hawaii. And we wanted somewhere neutral and somewhere romantic. And, it was going to be the big, reveal sort of thing. And it started quite innocently with a small amount. And I said, look, I don't have that cash, but I've got a line of credit. If you can promise me that you're going to get that money back to me next week, as soon as you get back on Wi-Fi, despite, me feeling a little uncomfortable about it, I trust you, blah, blah, blah. It just went from there. And you can read all the sordid details about it. But it eventually ended up that I was in Hawaii waiting for him. And it was about the 4th or 5th day. He was in Sri Lanka, so he said. And, he needed more money to try and get the government, they needed, you needed to give them money for them to allow you to get the proper paperwork. And it was one story after another. And I guess those that are listening or that have heard this story, I get all the time, how did you fall for it? How could you not have seen, and how did you? And the reality is that we all know people who have done silly things when they have the love goggles on. And that's why when I started Love Assist, it's all about getting as much front-loaded awareness that you can before you get exposed to it's brain chemistry, it is, biology, it is psychology. When we are bitten by the love bug, we do all sorts of silly things. And one of the key things really about the experience was that it opened the door for me to realize, oh my gosh, your knight in shining armor is not coming. You need to rescue yourself. And that led to a lot more personal development and trying to uncover and research a lot more about how relationships can be successful and do other things, like that. Romance scams are costing us globally. Do you have any idea what the number is?
Millions of dollars. I did see the stat online. I can't remember it, but I know it was a lot of money. There's so many people get ripped off every year. Do you know the exact?
Yeah. So let me just sort of share some scary numbers. And part of the reason why I'm so keen on raising awareness is that, not only do I think online dating is a fabulous way to meet people, and I've met my fiance online and he's amazing. We've been going out for 2 years. We're getting married in August, and it's wonderful. And it's a great tool. But right now, globally, we lose $60 billion a year to romance scams. Oh, 60 billion. So if you just unpick that as a social issue, you've got not only the cash that's lost, so the opportunity cost of hospitals and heart transplants and charity work and you name it, But the money, we know the money's going into illegal activities. So that's 60 billion. So call me stupid. Say that the hundreds of thousands of people that have lost money to romance scams, go ahead. Say we're all absolutely nuts. But I think as a society, when we are hemorrhaging $60 billion a year because of this, we've got to actually have some conversations about how to stay safe. It's so easy to glibly say, oh, she had it coming, and oh, she saw the millions in his bank account. Like, you wouldn't believe some of the publicity from the Sun over in the UK and in Australia. People can be, oh, you got what you deserved, you big Dumbo. It's like, oh my gosh, I promise you, it is like there are so many legitimate love seekers. There's going to be 70% of new relationships start online by 2040. It's a great tool, but we have to talk about, when people are in those situations, if people make other people feel stupid and feel silly, then we're not going to talk about these things. And one of the real, sort of heartfelt things from writing I Love You, Send Money was the number of people who came forward and said, you know what, I have been in therapy for years. Nobody understands what I was, what I went through. They just see it as so silly. I know that you get it, and I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm somebody understands what I went through, and so so there's a piece that's just there about being caring towards other human beings, and we've got hundreds of thousands of people that are losing money. And cyber crime is increasing. In New Zealand alone, from last year to this year, 5 times the increase. And the other thing is most people don't report because it's embarrassing. I mean, when we were preparing for today's session, Peter was saying, oh my God, who would ever talk about being scammed? And it's true. And I struggled with actually sharing the story. However, I do think that we have to make lemons out of lemonade, and we do have to also find some meaning and purpose out of this. And thus, Love Assist is born. And so, we had my colleagues and I had spent time last year going and doing a roadshow around New Zealand. And it was amazing, people out there, learning about what they should put in profiles and understanding what it takes to be relationship ready and committing, setting boundaries, learning all those tips and traps that they need to be successful online.
Wow, thank you for sharing that story. It does take something to share that. And it's all judgment at the end of the day, what other people think. As they say, what other people think is none of my business, right?
That's right.
The fact is, you are sharing authentically, and a lot of people will be able to relate to that. I mean, I know people personally. I know one guy was ripped off over $250,000 to a girl in Nigeria that he was head over heels in love with, who all he had was photos from this woman. And, and there were all these different stories about, they were meant to meet at the airport, and then different things would be happening and they wouldn't meet, etc. So with your situation, when you were in Hawaii, when did you kind of get that you might have been being ripped off? Like, when did it hit you? Was like,
yeah, I think I knew that I was being ripped off partway through with the, even before I went to Hawaii. You get that instinct, and don't listen to your instinct at your own peril. I think everyone we know, especially in the circles that we go in, instinct is such a huge decision-making factor. And, it didn't feel right. But all these other pluses, and we are all so desperate to, we're just so desperate for love. And this is one of the things about why we've designed the relationship ready quiz. Even just as a blunt instrument, it shows you, hey, look, if you're super, super, keen on picking anyone, you need to just calm down a little bit, work through that. And just, I was so in love with being in love. And I had the blinders on. And so it's so important to sort of go in eyes wide open. It was probably about the 4th or 5th day. And I was sitting at this bar, the Waikiki, the end of Waikiki bar, and I met this guy just sitting next to me, and it ended up, I mean, it's kind of a funny story, but I explained the situation, you know, and I was waiting for this guy, and he said, oh, you know, that sounds totally plausible, that you know, Sri Lanka, I've heard, is really difficult, you know, and that the government can be quite, you know, for business people, you know, you have to go through things a different way. And then, you know, you start to doubt yourself. But when he rang and he said that he needed an extra 10 grand to get him and his assistant out of jail because they didn't have the right paperwork for the workers that were working on, you know, because he was desperately trying to finish quickly so he could come and see me in Hawaii. So inadvertently, I guess it was my fault. But anyway, so it was then I said, look, you know, I ask your assistant's wife to help you out. And she can't, she's blind. I thought, well, what does that have to do with the price of eggs? You know, I mean, for goodness sakes, have they never, you know? So it was at that point, I just thought, he's not coming. And then just to add insult to injury, it was the last day and I went in this bookstore. And this book was open. And you know when there's something, you know, kind of calling to you. And anyways, this book was open to the page. The book was called She. And it was open. It says she was the one she was waiting for. And I thought, oh, really? You know? So anyway, so and wow. You know, and then the healing process began, but not before, you know, having quite a financial you know, sort of situation to deal with, and ended up losing my house and running back home to Canada. So that was another adventure, but that's another story that's book 2.
You know, it's interesting. You look back on your life, and you know, there's moments that I look back at that I can relate to your story. It was a few different moments, but one I remember really strongly is when I was in my early 20s, and I went to rent this place in Main Beach. Because when I first came to the Gold Coast, I was working as a sub-editor at the Bulletin and then a journalist at the Bulletin and the Sun, and I only planned to be on the Gold Coast about a year or two. Then I wanted to go and live in America. That was always my plan, to go live in America. And so I went to rent this place in Main Beach, waterfront unit. I gave this guy bond money, rent money. It was about $1,000 at the time. And then I found out that the guy was actually renting. And he did a runner with my money, right? I was so devastated. I remember crying for a week. I was so devastated. I couldn't believe I fell for it. I had the guy's mobile number. I had a receipt. And I thought, and literally, I was just totally devastated. I hadn't done any personal development really, or not much at that point. And I just totally made it mean that I was a complete idiot, and that how can I fall for that, and just made it mean a whole lot of stuff about me, and felt really bad and really shameful and really just really embarrassed about it. And I remember in that moment when I was looking back at that crying, I thought, that's it, I'm not going to rent again. And I went and bought my first house on the Gold Coast in 2002 from there. And I'm still living in that same house now.
Woohoo!
Found that house. It's a great positive story from that. When I found that house at the time, I didn't really like the house. I thought it hasn't got any character. I want something with cathedral ceilings. And my dad always said to me, you can always add character later. So that's exactly what I did. I did a full renovation on the house. I added cathedral ceilings, added a whole another level, basically totally transformed the house. And I call it the happy house now. And while I might have lost $1,000 back then, now if I was to sell the place, I would easily make $100,000. So now I'm actually really grateful for that experience, because otherwise I may still be renting, or I'm, who knows what might have happened. But you know, now I've been on the Gold Coast 20 years. I absolutely love it. I go to America every year for about a month. I've done that for the last 4 years or so. I love visiting America. And now looking back at that, I can see the gems in that story. And I think most people can probably relate to both our stories there, because there's times in life when we do stuff that at the time you totally beat yourself up about, but then many years later you might think, well, actually that was a really good thing that happened, because now I can share my experiences. And now, I mean, look what you're doing now because of that experience. So maybe that was just part of the journey, and the fact that you can speak about it authentically and honestly, you know, that will move a lot of people. And it's actually a very inspiring part of your story, the fact that you've come through that and that you're okay to share it without shame or blame or guilt or whatever. And who cares what other people think? People are always going to have their judgment judgments anyway. And the minute you step up in the media, there's going to be people who are going to try and put you down. That's just how it goes. The minute you become more of a profile out there, you're going to get more haters out there. And you're also going to get more people that absolutely love what you do as well. So you're always going to get that divide. So it's just a matter of staying true to your truth. And then with the online dating, since 38, I've been very hormonal from about the age of 38, and I've never married or had children, as I mentioned. And so I've been looking for the one. I had this massive list of what I wanted in a man, and I've been online dating, etc. And I remember chatting to this one guy online who was a French art dealer, and I had all these, and it was actually on Facebook. I had these amazing photos on his profile, and we're chatting away, and he said he loved me and all this kind of thing. And then I said, let's do a video call. And there was every single excuse in the book why he couldn't do a video call, right? Even though we could chat on Facebook, but for some reason, oh no, Messenger doesn't work, or I'm out of range, or whatever. And I thought, this guy's a Nigerian scam artist, right? And I just pulled him up on it. I just said, you're a Nigerian scam artist, don't you? Anyway, so he eventually owned up. He said, oh, I'm desperate over here, blah, blah, blah. And he actually owned up to being a Nigerian scam artist. But, this kind of thing happens a lot. And so on that point, what are some things that people need to look out for? Some obvious signs that people are scamming them online. What are some things?
Right. So it's really, really important. And the thing that you've just pointed out is probably the number one, sort of tell. And it's if people don't want to meet you face to face. And that's, so one of the things in our number one guiding principle is meet as soon as possible face to face. You're not actually dating until you've gone out there and spoken to somebody and eyeballed them. And the other thing is about meeting someone, there's a lot of chemistry that occurs. People can tell if they like each other within the first few seconds. And the reality is that's a science behind it. The neuroscience is, you're either going to click or you're not. So it's not about saying that you have a certain look or not, because, we all know couples that look, what does she see in him? What does he see in her? How did they ever get together? But there are certain things that really appeal. We are all unique, each a different snowflake, and we are attracted to different things. So absolutely getting to meet face to face. And anybody who's dodgy about that, there's a lot of people that are online that are in relationships or even married, and it's really, really important that you meet face to face. So that would be sort of one of the absolute must-dos. Another one, as I described to you about James, having this MacGyver type job. When I went to do research for the book afterwards, I went back online to see if I could see how easy it would be to start to see these scammers from even their initial conversations. And a number of people will be, they're on an offshore oil rig, or they're posted, in a war-torn Afghanistan or somewhere, or they're in different time zones. They're quite often out of Wi-Fi range. It just gives them that full flexibility to be able to be on, off, or otherwise. And so it's something, really to look for. Another one is, they've come to their someday now. We always have that, one day, when I retire, we'll travel the world. Or, with James, he had been like myself, we had worked so hard, for our whole lives. And it was like, oh, at least now I get to share the fruits of our labors together. And, that's another thing, it's all that, someday is now. And you're the lucky one, Aldwyn. You're going to be the one to share all that with. There's often a tragic family event. And so, with James, it was his wife that had died of breast cancer. And, it was interesting because even later on, after James sort of got out of the picture, he even had his son, Michael. There was the hurricane. There was a big hurricane out on the East Coast of New York and stuff. What was that? Hurricane Sandy. And his son had called me for money, and his son had emailed me for money. I mean, these guys just won't stop at anything. Wow. So also, sharing that tragic, family event is also another tell. I go through the 10 traps in my book, in the I love you, send money. But I've also got a couple of funny videos that people can go and visit on the website, and just to see those. But if you've got, somebody that's saying a lot of romantic cliches and they seem too good to be true, the reality is they probably are. And until you've moved off, the computer screen and into real life, nothing really can be taken as read. You need to get that physical proof. An easy trap as well is just getting off the dating site really early. So don't do it. It's a very easy way to isolate their prey, and most of them will do it. Oh, my membership's expiring, or it'll be so much easier if I can just text you from my phone. And the most obvious, I guess, Aldwyn, is never send money, like ever. It just didn't, I know that there was one comment on one of the posts on some of the media, and I can't remember where it was, but the guy said, look, if this was the 1990s, you can understand somebody would have fallen prey to a romance scam. But now in 2019, everybody knows about these scams. It's going up. The technology is becoming so much more sophisticated. So even, it's just about being safe and setting boundaries. And, boundaries is a really important thing. And we talk about that a lot at our programs, and setting boundaries before you go online. So if you've got kids, when is appropriate, an appropriate time for you to introduce people? And, how much time am I actually going to spend online dating? Because it can be quite intoxicating. You can be, there's Tinder parties and people are swiping together, and it's you can get quite taken up by the time that's involved. And those of you that want to be interested, to see how much you're actually spending in terms of, what the cost of your first date is, we've got an algorithm, a little formula, one of our free resources online, that people can punch in the amount of time that they're spending online, how much it'll take them, to prepare for their first date, how much time they're spending, and you will absolutely be blown away at how much it costs. So you can put in your hourly rate, and once you add up the hours, how much do you think it would cost you? In an average month, if you're online dating and you have 3 first dates and 3 second dates, what do you reckon the number would be?
You can waste so much time online chatting to guys. Like I've learned to be, very strategic now about who I'll actually spend time with, because a lot of guys either just want sex, or they just want to do sex chat, or, you've just really got to cut to the chase. So you've got to, as I say, you've got to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince. Well, it's probably about one prince amongst every 100 frogs is what I've found. And I'm probably a bit resigned and cynical and a bit bitter about the whole thing. However, I've, hours and hours and hours. I have no idea, but a long time, I would say.
Yeah. So we've guesstimated it to be based on, just spending a couple of hours to write a profile, a couple of hours, going through, emailing back and forth, an hour getting ready, an hour going to your date, If you're spending around 20, 25 hours a month, multiply that times your hourly rate. And you're looking at numbers, at least $1,000, but it could be higher. And so investing in yourself, investing the time that you have in online dating, it's not free. The app might be free, but it is costing you valuable time, in some cases money if you're paying for additional features. So there's a lot of things that I certainly at sort of midpoint in my life didn't know about. And so there are a lot of free resources that we've got online. So you can, look at the dating algorithm, see how much, money you're spending. Check out the Relationship Ready quiz, see if you are ready, or whether or not you need to do a little bit more work. If you're online now and your profile's not quite hitting the mark, it could be because either your photos are not actually revealing what they should be revealing. So you should be having, a nice face shot, a nice full body shot, and something that's showing in action, whether it's, kayaking or reading something, art gallery. they're very simple things that you can do to fix your profile. And also to talk not just a bit about yourself or a bit about what the person is looking, that you're looking for, but a bit of both. So, there's a profile flip chart quiz too that you can start to learn a little bit more about what's going to work and what's not going to work. So we just want to really make sure that people are forearmed, forewarned. I'm not saying that people shouldn't go online dating. I absolutely think it's a great tool. It's a great tool, but we have to be, we have to know a little bit about ourselves. We have to have that self-love. That was, the self-love is an absolute key critical thing before, you go online.
Absolutely. There's so many weddings that happen out of online dating. I know my cousin in Sydney married his wife through RSVP, and they've got 2 children, very happily married. My neighbor got married through RSVP. So I know that, there are a lot of success stories out there. However, definitely these are some things to be careful of. So when it comes to self-love, what are some things people can do to build that self-love?
Well, I think it's unique to everyone. Has a different sort of sense of what's important to them, and part of developing the UBU practice was about people wanting to live their authentic lives. And so many of us get caught up in the Talking Heads song. This isn't my beautiful wife. This isn't my beautiful house. How did I get here? And I think it's really challenging to take stock. We've got the rugby saying, halftime change sides, but I think it's a really good time, whether you're in your 40s, your 50s, to kind of just say, right, am I doing what what my passion is? Am I living my bliss? And I think you can quite often, once you start looking through your own beliefs, are you living someone else's value system? And the frustrations that we experience in our own lives quite often will be a flag of, hey, do you have the self-love sort of thing sussed out here? Because we can get to a certain point in our lives, and that unhappiness has to be addressed. You can only so many drinking parties and flitting back and forth with different partners, and you've got to at some point say, okay, well, you don't have to, but I think it's quite rewarding when you do. And finding that self-love, that you're okay. Brene Brown, you can be vulnerable. There's a great series of research around attachment theory and understanding different attachment styles and how relationships are going to either work or not work. So there are a lot of things that if you understand yourself better, you can ask for what you need, and you can know if there's somebody that's going to be a match for you or not. And it's not about, you both play tennis and you both, like to go for long walks on the beach. Compatibility is more about what you do when shit hits the fan. How do you deal with the conflicts? How do you deal with, when you disagree on things? And Alanda Botan talks about, I think it's, what does he say? I'm just going to share you this quote with you because I love it. So the partner truly best suited to us is not the one who miraculously happens to share every taste, but the one who can negotiate differences with intelligence and good grace. Compatibility is an achievement of love. It shouldn't be its precondition. And I think, certainly for me, I was looking for, the last page happy ending before we had even gone through and built all the wonderful elements of each chapter.
Yes, how interesting. And, movies probably have a lot to do with how, our idealistic idea of, the man in, shining armor on the horse, and the whole Cinderella thing. And, we have these kind of ideals that are instilled from a young age with some of these movies and fairy tales and things that we see. And I know with my list that I had this list, because someone said to me, write a list of everything you want Aldwyn in a man and be very specific on that list. Right? So I had this massive list, and they said, and then put it under your bed with a crystal and all this sort of thing. Anyway, I remember showing my list to one guy once, and he said, Aldwyn, never show that list to another man. so, so I haven't shown that list, but I also get that, it was a pretty ridiculous list, and I get that I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. So I guess, and in the meantime, I do things that I love. I am building my self-love all the time. As far as, I love going to the beach. I'll honor that. I do yoga. I meditate. There's lots of things I do for me. I get massages occasionally. So as much as I work hard, I also take time out for me. I go to movies. So, having that time doing things you love, interviewing. I love interviewing. This is part of what I love. You're doing what you love, I think, also helps you have self-love. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Your attitude, and one of the first things that we talk about is having a positive attitude. So people coming into the whole online dating scene, having that belief that you are going to find a person that you are suited for, and that you're head over heels in love with, and that ticks all of the important boxes. And we say to people, if they're online and find themselves talking about, anything negative about how things are going, it's probably a good time to go offline, sort of get back in the right frame of mind, because you will attract people to where your level is, and you going for walks on the beach, being really, really happy in your life, would eventually ended up getting me to the point where I am now. And when I went back online a couple of years ago, because I met my partner on Tinder. And I had about 6 months prior to that developed the list, and I had identified the key things that were important to me. And I didn't even think much more about it, but I had been really clear on what I really wanted somebody that was family oriented and other things. And about 6 months after going out with Rick, I went back to that list just for, I wonder what. And it was incredible. He far exceeded all of those things that were on my list. But people don't come wrapped up in a certain way. So I think it's trying to get that when we talk about being authentic online and being authentic to ourselves and authentic living, it's about really understanding what those most important things are to you. And quite often it's not a size 6. It's somebody who's going to support you in your life, and who's going to be a wonderful mother, or what we think is important at the surface. When we spend a little bit more time, sort of delving into it, our non-negotiables are actually quite reasonable, and most people, adhere to those.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. I'm finding this fascinating, this conversation. And I do love your quiz online, I must say, on the Love Assist website. And it said that I was relationship ready, which was pretty cool. So what are the different levels that can come out when you do the quiz? And it's a free quiz on your...
Yep. There's some people that are just, they prefer being single, and it would be sort of irresponsible almost to go online saying, hey, I'm looking for a relationship, because everything points to, I'm really, really happy just being on my own. And there's a difference between being comfortable in your own skin as a single person, which I think you were sort of a poster child for that, but it doesn't mean that you want to stay single. So the difference between somebody who scores highly on the staying single is probably identifying that they're more of an avoidant attachment style. So an avoidant is unlikely to want to be in that intimacy of a connected relationship. So they'll just quite often flip back and forth. So single and is one of the along that spectrum. The next one is that you're kind of bit of a tire kicker, you're thinking maybe, I think that relationship might be ready. One of the myths around going dating is it's like, oh, there's a specific time period post-divorce or post-split that you should, adhere to before you start dating. And the reality is that it's different for everyone. And quite often in a relationship, people emotionally exit before they physically exit. So that is one of those myths. We were talking about the truth about love. So some people might be, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. And so probably you need a little bit more time. And it's a great time to be working on yourself, on your self-love, defining a little bit more clearly what it is that you're looking for in a partner. Moving slightly over, then you're relationship ready. You've got, sort of eyes wide open. You know the pros and cons. You're not expecting Richard Gere to be coming down with the boat to get you from the fire escape. It's going to take some work. And then at the other end of the spectrum, really relationship ready, is probably a little bit too keen. So so it's about recognizing that you're probably more interested in being in a relationship. It doesn't really matter who you're with. And again, some people younger fall into that trap. All my friends have partners, or they're all getting married and having kids. Oh my gosh, I have to do that too. And you might not, it might not be your authentic thing. But you could be just too keen. So again, you can be blind when you're going online, when you're overly anxious about that. So those are the 4 sort of areas, and there are next steps that people can take around each of those. And it's quite important to have that a bit of a barometer before you go in, and do something about that, so you're being responsible.
That's awesome. So I'm relationship ready, apparently. So I've moved up the spectrum, but I would say at one point I was definitely desperate, and I was at the very top level there, where especially when I was hormonal at 38, like, oh, I've got to have children.
Absolutely.
My European family would say, Aldwyn, you're not getting any younger.
Well, that's right. That's right. I mean, we met, we're both fans of authentic education. And I met a couple of gals that they got married because of cultural reasons. They wanted to, adhere to what was traditional. And it wasn't that they agreed with it. It's just that they ended up, sort of shotgun, okay, I'm getting to that age, I need to do this. And it's never going to have a long-term solution, because at some point, the real you is going to say, actually, I'm not in love with this person. And that's not to say arranged marriages don't work, because that's a whole other cultural side of things. And there are some beautiful stories about people being in love. So each culture, each person has such different views on love and relationships. And it sort of annoys me a little bit that in school we learn about all these things that have limited utility. We don't learn a lot about budgeting money, and we don't learn much about love and relationships. And then we're sort of wound up, and we're set out at the worst possible time when all the hormones are raging at 18 plus, and then you just kind of go and try and do the best you can.
Yeah. So what do you suggest to women who might be hormonal? Because obviously for women, we've got the clicking, the clicking, the clock, the ticking clock.
Easy for you to say.
We've got women can have children maybe up to 50. There's a lady on the Gold Coast had a child naturally at age 50. After the age of 40, of course, it becomes harder to have children. And for some women, there is a desperation, no one in this room, of course, but, there is a desperation to hurry up and have children. And, a girlfriend of mine said, Aldwyn, do not mention babies on the first date. And she kind of jokes with me, Lynn Santa, her name is, she goes, babies. Anyway, there was a time there when I would mention babies on the first date. And of course, guys would just go running the minute you mention children, often, because a lot of guys over the age of 40 have had children and don't want any more children. So I've been approaching dating a little bit differently, and just been, okay, well, whatever's meant to be will be, don't get stressed about it, just go with the flow. And it's tricky sometimes, because the hormones are still there. Now I'm 45 and I still haven't met the guy I want to have children with. So it's tricky. It's really tough not to mention babies, or to even think about the children side of it, and to go openly into a relationship and not seem desperate. So what are some suggestions you'd have for women that maybe are hormonal?
So I think it's really, I think it is a complicated sort of situation. And I mean, as are many things. I mean, the Pink song, The Truth About Love, sort of sums it up really. It's messy, it's salty, it's difficult, it's the best of times, but I really, 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 I'm happy. I think that, as with anything, whether it's dating or whether it's career or anything, as long as you're authentic to yourself and and only you know what's appropriate for you. So for example, you might be absolutely hell-bent for leather. You want to have kids. And so I would say to you, you know what, let's make sure that you know what you're looking for, and that you go online dating and you talk about what's important to you and what you're looking for. There might be somebody out there that's equally saying, you know what, it's really, really important to me to have kids. I am a big family person. I want to. So you're kind of thinking about how that person is going to be reading your profile, and that person isn't necessarily going to be saying, "Oh my gosh, she's so desperate to have kids," because you're talking about, why it is that you're in that position that you're in. You've got to own your own story. And so if you're embarrassed of being authentic, or you're trying to, it's not about selling yourself as in like, what's, everyone else is looking for. What you're looking for is the person to match up with you and what you're looking for. So it's really easy for us to get caught up in what everyone else is looking for, but that's not what you're looking for. And I'll give you an example. So one of the best profiles that I had come across, a young woman who she had been divorced. She had 2 young kids. She was looking for another person, but her procreating days were over. And so she wanted to be really clear that despite her being in her 30s, no more kids. It's okay if you have children, but my procreating days are over. So she had actually said that in. So she's saying, look, I'm totally cool with having a blended family. I mean, who wouldn't be after that great movie? Another rom-com. But for her she'd almost be leading somebody astray, or wasting her own time by not specifically articulating, she's going to meet some guy, he wants more kids. That's just not where I'm at. So the more authentic we can be and get that clarity and be confident, not like I was the first night I wrote my profile, like, gosh, I hope someone's going to respond and that they're going to, that they're going to like me. Nah, you've got a set of things that you're interested in, and own it, whatever that is, and go out there then and articulate clearly what it is that you're looking for, and also potentially what that person would be getting. You're a great gal, so
I'm such a good catch. I don't know why I just haven't been whipped up by now. But anyway,
we should put like sort of a sign up, for dating, and so maybe you'll get some wonderful connections after today.
Watching this and you think that we could work out, just send me a private message.
That's right. We should have started that way.
Just put something in the chat box and I'll get back to you. Make sure you put your phone number in there, and we'll be wanting to have a video chat. Okay.
No, you have to meet face to face. You learn nothing. Okay. Come on.
Oh, look, we could chat for ages, Jordan. It's been so lovely chatting with you. Now, we need to wrap up shortly. However, before we do, I would love to hear more about your services and how people can hop on and do the quiz with you. So if you could just explain a bit about that, and then we'll show.
So we've got a lot of free resources on the website, loveassist.com. And so just go on there and you can see the free stuff. There are tools, there's 10 guiding principles for online dating. There's the videos with the 10 traps. We've also got online programs. So we've got the Online Dater Accelerator, which is 7 days in 7 ways in 7 days. And so that's sort of your quick start program, and it goes through quite a lot of content, but it's sort of you just need a little bit of it. If you think you just want a bit of a tweak, it gets you all set up, but it does talk about things like attitude and boundaries and confidence and those sorts of things. If you're a little bit more of a pointy head and you want to know all the research behind it and the science, then the Real Me, Better We is probably your gig, and that is there's 10 different secrets to success in that program, and you work through each one, and you end up also going through developing profiles, but it has a lot about going through that 3-step process, which is the L2 learning system. And that's getting relationship ready, creating that authentic presence and profile, and then committing to make love happen. And so there's a lot about setting up your own personal dating agreement and using a dating crew, whoever that is, to help you through that. So if there are any problems, you can access that. So those programs, you can read a little bit more about those on the website also. And I have 1 hour free webinars. So the next one's coming up on the 17th of June, and all the details for that are on Eventbrite, and people can sign up and get more sort of more free stuff and learn a little bit more about that. And so it's where we're at.
Fantastic. And your books, are they available on your website as well?
Yes, the I Love You Send Money is on the iloveyousendmoney.com site. And the Elevate book, you can get that on jordanalexander.me. But most of the sites sort of talk together. And if there's anybody that wants to send me an email and talk about any specific issues or ideas, I do get quite a lot of feedback from some of the publicity that comes through, people that aren't sure what they should do, or they've sent a screenshot of somebody's interactions, and they're saying, oh, it seems a bit dubious to me. What do you think? So I'm totally cool with getting stuff like that and providing some comments back. So jordan@loveassist.com or jordanalexander.me. Happy to speak with people about any of that sort of thing.
Wow, that's fantastic, Jordan. Wow, so good that you do that, and what a great service you offer. And, thank goodness maybe in some ways for that scammer, because he's led you on this journey, right? It's led you on this journey, and now you can help so many other people with what you do. So, money comes, money goes in life, but the lessons stay forever. And, nothing's a mistake. They're all learning experiences, and the biggest breakthroughs often come from the biggest breakdowns, and life is a roller coaster ride, as I often say. You're going to have your ups and downs. The thing is to stay on that roller coaster ride of life. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Jordan. Is there any final words before we wrap up?
I guess just to say that why don't we, until the end of May, if people are interested in a copy of the ebook, I'll whether they email you or email me, let's share that with people, and they can read a little bit more about the story, get the real life Dirty John kind of stuff. And just for listening, why don't we do that?
Right, that's a fantastic offer. Thank you very much. Well, happy for them to email you direct for that. So jordan@loveassist.com. You can get that. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jordan. I've loved chatting with you, and we could always do a second and third installment of this interview and do some updates down the track. It's been fantastic to chat with you. Thank you so much for coming on as the guest today on Truth Xpose TV. What an amazing story you have, and great work you're doing. So
Thank you.
Keep it up, and I've certainly learned a lot through this.
We got to find you a man.
For a good time call. That's not the way to do it. Don't do that.
No.
Don't do that. But yes, I am single, and I'm actually happily single. However, I would like a great man in my life, and I probably am a little bit picky with that, but we'll just see how we go with that. We'll keep you updated on social media. And for those watching this, thank you so much for watching Truth Xpose TV today. If you like what you've seen, please put your comments in the chat underneath this video, wherever you're watching it right now. Make sure you subscribe to Media Queen TV, and also like Truth Xpose TV on Facebook. And do you have any other tips for us as well? What else do you think? Have you been scammed? Do you know someone who's been scammed? Any other suggestions? Please pop them in the chat underneath this video. Love to hear from you. Thank you once again. Thank you, Jordan. You've been awesome.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful night or morning, wherever you are in the world. And remember to shine your light bright, and you can then light up those around you. You are magnificent, and there's a reason you're on this right now watching this. Thank you, Jordan, for your time. It's been fantastic. And connect with Jordan. Do the quiz. I'd love to hear what your results are on the quiz. It was a great process to go through, by the way. I love doing the quiz. So check it out, loveassist.com. check Jordan out, get a copy of her books. She's brilliant, as you can see here, and it's been my honor and privilege to interview you today, Jordan. Thank you so much once again, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.